Hello, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and as always, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Julia. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're going to talk about something that holds many English learners back: overthinking while speaking.
Yes, today's topic is Think Less, Speak More, a mindset that can help you speak English more naturally and fluently. If you often hesitate, translate in your head, or worry about making mistakes before you speak, then this episode is for you.
That's right. Many learners think too much before speaking, and that actually slows them down. But what if you could train your brain to speak naturally without hesitation? We're going to share practical tips and strategies that will help you do just that.
And we want you to stay with us until the end because we'll also give you a simple challenge that can make a big difference in how you practice speaking English.
So, are you ready to stop overthinking and start speaking with confidence? Let's get started.
All right, Julia, let's dive into the real problem: overthinking while speaking English. Many learners get stuck in their own heads before they even say a word. Have you ever seen this happen?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of English learners pause too much because they're thinking about grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation all at the same time. And instead of speaking, they just stay quiet.
Exactly! It's like trying to drive a car while constantly checking the mirrors, the dashboard, and the road signs. You end up going super slow, or even stopping completely.
That's a great comparison. Overthinking makes people hesitate because they're afraid of making mistakes. And guess what? The more you hesitate, the harder it becomes to speak.
Right. And here's something interesting. Native speakers don't think that much while speaking. They just let the words flow naturally.
Exactly. When we speak in our native language, we don't stop to analyze every sentence, right? So why should we do that in English?
That's the key. When you focus too much on perfection, you lose confidence. You start thinking, what if I say the wrong word? What if my grammar is incorrect? And in the end, you say nothing at all.
And that's the real danger. When you don't practice speaking, you never improve. The people who become fluent are the ones who just speak without worrying too much.
Exactly. Let me ask our listeners something. Have you ever stayed silent because you were afraid of saying the wrong thing? If the answer is yes, then this episode is going to help you.
Absolutely. And don't worry, we've all been there. The good news is that there are ways to stop overthinking and start speaking more naturally, and that's what we'll cover next.
Yes! Coming up, we'll talk about why speaking more and thinking less is the secret to fluency. Stay with us. So, now that we've talked about how overthinking stops you from speaking, let's look at the other side. Why speaking more and thinking less is actually the key to fluency. Julia, what do you think is the biggest benefit of this approach?
Well, Jason, the first and most obvious benefit is that you become more confident. When you stop analyzing every word and just start speaking, you train your brain to handle conversations naturally.
That's a great point. It's like playing a sport. If you spend too much time thinking about every move, you'll never react quickly. But if you just play and trust yourself, you get better and faster.
Exactly. And another big benefit is that when you speak more, you improve your fluency. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to form sentences without hesitation.
Yes, and I love this fact. Native speakers don't think about grammar rules while speaking. They just talk naturally. And the best way for learners to do the same is to speak more without worrying too much.
That's right. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you actually sound more natural. Have you ever noticed that some advanced English learners still sound robotic because they focus too much on perfect grammar?
Oh, yes, and that's another benefit. You develop a natural speaking rhythm. When you think too much, you stop and start a lot. which makes your speech sound unnatural. But when you focus on just talking, your words start flowing smoothly.
And here's something interesting. Speaking more helps you learn faster. When you speak often, your brain starts recognizing patterns automatically, so you don't have to memorize grammar rules all the time.
That's true. Just like kids learning their first language, they don't study rules, they just talk and pick up the language naturally. And that's how English learners should practice too.
So, to sum it up, when you speak more and think less, you gain confidence, improve fluency, sound more natural, and learn faster. And the best part? It makes learning English so much more fun and stress-free.
Absolutely. And if you're thinking, okay, this sounds great, but how do I actually do it? Don't worry. Up next, we're going to talk about the common fears that stop people from speaking and how to overcome them.
Yes, so stay with us because this next part will help you break free from fear and start speaking with confidence.
All right, Julia. We've talked about why overthinking is a problem and how speaking more can help. But let's be honest, many English learners still feel afraid to speak. So, let's talk about some of the biggest fears that stop people from speaking English.
Yes, one of the most common fears is, what if I make a mistake? So many learners hesitate because they're scared of using the wrong grammar or the wrong word. Have you noticed this, Jason?
Oh, absolutely. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is part of learning. In fact, mistakes are proof that you are learning.
That's so true. Think about how babies learn to speak. They make tons of mistakes, but nobody tells them to stop talking. They just keep trying, and eventually they get better.
Exactly. So, if you're afraid of making mistakes, change your mindset. Instead of thinking, I can't make mistakes, tell yourself, every mistake is a lesson.
That's a great tip. Another big fear is, what if people laugh at me? Many learners worry that native speakers will judge them or make fun of their accent. But is that really true, Jason?
Not at all. In fact, most native speakers respect and admire people who try to speak their language. And let's be honest, people don't care as much as we think they do. Everyone is busy with their own lives.
Yes, most of the time people appreciate your effort. And let's say, even if someone does judge you, so what? Their opinion doesn't define your progress.
Exactly. Now, another fear is, what if I can't find the right words? Some learners hesitate because they feel like their vocabulary is limited. But guess what? You don't need fancy words to communicate.
That's right. You can always use simple words, gestures, and even synonyms to express your ideas. Think about how kids speak. They don't have a huge vocabulary, but they still communicate effectively.
Yes, and here's a little secret. Even native speakers forget words sometimes. When that happens, they just explain it in a different way. You can do the same.
Exactly. And the last fear we'll talk about is, what if I get stuck and don't know what to say? Many learners freeze in conversations because they don't know how to continue. Have you ever seen this happen?
Oh, yes. But the solution is simple. Use filler phrases to keep the conversation going. Instead of stopping, say things like, let me think, or that's a good question. This gives you time to organize your thoughts.
That's a great tip. So, to sum up, don't fear mistakes. Don't worry about what others think. Use simple words and have backup phrases ready. If you do this, speaking English will feel much easier.
Absolutely! And coming up next, we'll share practical strategies that will help you stop overthinking and start speaking with confidence. So, stay with us. All right, now that we've talked about the common fears that stop people from speaking, let's get to the good part. How can you actually train your brain to think less and speak more? Julia, Where should we start?
Great question, Jason. The first thing you need to do is speak without preparing too much. Many learners spend a lot of time thinking about perfect sentences before they speak, but if you want to train your brain, you need to speak first, then correct later.
That's a great point. It's like learning to ride a bike. You don't sit down and plan every movement. You just start pedaling. The same goes for English. Speaking first helps your brain get used to real conversations.
Exactly. And here's another tip: practice speaking out loud every day. Even if you don't have a partner, just talking to yourself helps train your brain to think in English.
Oh, yes. I love this method. Describe what you're doing, talk about your day, or explain your thoughts in English. It might feel weird at first, but it really works.
Absolutely. And to take it a step further, shadowing is a great exercise. Have you heard of it, Jason?
Of course. For those who don't know, shadowing means listening to native speakers and repeating exactly what they say at the same time. It's a powerful way to train your brain to think faster.
Yes. It forces you to react quickly, just like in real conversations. And speaking of real conversations, another great way to train your brain is to put yourself in situations where you have to speak English.
That's a game changer. Join English-speaking groups, talk to strangers, or even use voice chat in English learning apps. When you're in a situation where you must speak, your brain has no choice but to adapt quickly.
Exactly. And another thing, stop translating in your head. Many learners think in their native language first, then translate to English, but this slows you down. Instead, train your brain to think directly in English.
That's a big one. An easy way to do this is to surround yourself with English. Watch English shows, read English books, and even change your phone's language to English. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes.
Yes, so to sum up, speak without over-preparing, talk out loud daily, practice shadowing, put yourself in real situations, and stop translating in your head. These techniques will help you speak faster and more naturally.
Exactly. And up next, we'll share some fun and easy exercises to help you practice speaking more in your daily life. So, stay with us. All right, Julia. We've talked about how to train your brain to think less and speak more. But now, let's make it even easier. What are some simple daily practices that can help English learners speak more and hesitate less?
Great question, Jason. One of the best daily practices is the 1-minute speaking challenge. Every day, choose a topic, maybe your morning routine, your favorite food, or what you did yesterday, and speak about it for 1 minute without stopping.
I love that. And if 1 minute feels easy, increase it to 2 or 3 minutes. The goal is to train your brain to keep talking, even if you make mistakes.
Exactly. Another great practice is talking to yourself in English throughout the day. Just describe what you're doing. I'm making coffee. I need to go to the store. This keeps your brain in English mode all day.
Yes, and if you want to make it even better, record yourself speaking. Listen to your voice and notice what you can improve. It's like giving yourself feedback.
That's such a great idea. And here's another fun one. Use a mirror. Stand in front of a mirror and have a conversation with yourself. It builds confidence because you're getting used to seeing yourself speak in English.
Oh, I love that. And speaking of fun, another great practice is singing along to English songs or mimicking actors from movies or TV shows. It helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence.
Yes! And for those who want more real-life practice, make it a habit to talk to at least one person in English every day. It could be a friend, a language partner, or even a voice message in an English-speaking group.
That's a fantastic challenge. And remember, speaking more is about building a habit. If you make English a natural part of your daily routine, hesitation will slowly disappear.
Absolutely. So, to sum up, try the 1-minute speaking challenge. Talk to yourself in English, record your voice, use a mirror, sing along to songs, mimic native speakers, and speak with at least one person every day. These small daily habits will make a huge difference.
Exactly. And coming up next, we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts and a special challenge for our listeners. So, stay with us. Wow, Julia. We've covered so many powerful techniques today, from overcoming overthinking to daily speaking habits. But before we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with some final words and motivation.
Absolutely, Jason. If there's one thing I want our listeners to remember, it's this: perfection is not the goal. Communication is. You don't need perfect grammar or a huge vocabulary to speak English well. You just need the confidence to try.
That's so true. The biggest mistake learners make is waiting until they feel ready before they start speaking. But guess what? The only way to feel ready is to start speaking now.
Exactly. And remember, making mistakes is not a failure. It's part of learning. Every mistake you make is proof that you're improving and getting better. So instead of being afraid, embrace the process.
I love that. And to all our listeners, don't let fear hold you back. Set yourself a challenge. Speak in English every single day, even if it's just for a minute. The more you do it, the easier it will become.
Yes, and surround yourself with English as much as possible. Watch English shows, listen to English podcasts, read in English, and most importantly, speak as much as you can.
Exactly. So before we go, here's a quick challenge for you. Right after this podcast, take 1 minute and talk about what you learned today. Just say it out loud. No writing, no thinking, just speaking.
That's a great challenge, Jason. And remember, you are capable of learning English fluently. Just take it one step at a time, stay consistent, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to keep practicing. We'll see you in the next episode of the English Learning Podcast.
Bye, everyone. Keep speaking and keep growing.